Well, good morning, everybody. Good day. It's the 14th of February, Valentine's Day at 10:14 a.m. And today I think we're going to do some tweets. I'm going to layer in a bunch of more rich context into a whole bunch of crazy shit I said recently on Twitter. And then, well, actually, before that, I want to talk about 3 really cool perception hacks that I like. And the first 2 are pretty straightforward. And the last one is a bit more complicated. And there's a leaf blower running outside, so I hope that doesn't distract. The first one, planning nows. This is a beautiful thing that just popped into my brain. Now, I want to again remind anybody outside myself that's listening to this. I cheat in class. I listen to everybody. So this is not my, none of my stuff is my ideas. I'm just like sort of relaying it. Planning a now is just the coolest. I didn't plan that for this now. Max, be cool, man. What's wrong, dude? Hey, what'd you do? Did you lose your chew toy? Where'd it go? You swallow it? Man, I need you to be quiet. Thank you. Just lay down. All right. I think when I started talking, he started thinking, well, I should be included in this. But we just did a walk. He's ate, he's drank, he's peed. Just had a cool moment in the park. I had a cool now with my dog, where there was 2 guys doing, I thought Tai Chi, but then I asked him what it was, and it was Bongwai. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but some sort of martial art that is meditative, where you're. I could see there's a lot of. Could you please keep it down, dude? No. Hey, pal. Shh. Easy, boy. Come on now. All right. There's probably going to be some barks, but if I keep going, I think he'll stop. That's usually what happens. I can talk anybody to boredom. As I was saying, planning a now is just the coolest thing you can do. And I'm going to walk you through kind of the genesis of a really awesome one I had yesterday. So I rode my bike out to where I like to walk. But instead of getting off my bike, I decided I was listening to some really great music, and I was having so much fun, I just decided to keep riding. And I went miles further than I normally do because I got an e-bike, and it does a lot of the pedaling for me. And I'm just riding along, having a great moment. And then I'm realizing, well, it's kind of about time to start eating. And I needed to start thinking about that. And I was going through my head all of the restaurants that I was nearby. And this guy was at home sleeping, like I wish he was doing now. And I considered a spot I could go that I like. And then as I'm constantly in these sort of reflection and contemplative loops, and I'm thinking, but I'm also trying to be very much in now and enjoy the hell out of it. As I was doing that, as I often do, it occurred that why limit myself to that restaurant? There are others. And I tried to think of how I could make that a cooler now. And I keep talking about that because it's very critical that you plan for it to be a now. Like, this isn't planning what you're going to do for lunch or This isn't planning your day. This is planning a specific moment that you kind of want to wallow in and enjoy and be very present for. It's a way you can kind of cheat a little bit and make sure that it's an awesome now if you plan it just a little bit and you just think. And so it occurred to me that I had, about this time last year, a very important philosophical breakthrough. And on my unique journey of know thyself, right around mid-January of 23, a lot of stuff just sort of came together for me in how I understand all this. And I've described authentic joy before, and I was at a new restaurant I'd never been to, and just on a whim, I decided to look on Yelp and find, I felt like a steak that day. I felt like I had just done something exciting, and I was so enthusiastic, and I was like, okay, I can't settle for one of my normal routines. Let's do something big. And so I went a place and I'd never been. I looked at a Yelp review of their food, and it was really good at a local area. I even left a review afterwards. I enjoyed that lunch so much. And I came back a few times. But I don't get there often because their schedule is a little bit particular, because they're very, like, they have chefs there. Like, they make food with purpose and art. And so usually when I want to have lunch, they're not open. And that's usually my breakfast. I have breakfast at about noon every day. But this time I thought, okay, well, I can't go there now. So, okay, well, that's cool though. I'll go when they open later. And I started sort of thinking about that as I've got my bike speed set to 2, and I'm just riding along, enjoying nature and the world around me. And I'm sort of thinking, well, how can I juice up this now? Because that was a good idea. I'm glad I didn't settle for that thing I was going to do, and I'm going to wait a few more hours. That'll make the meal more enjoyable, because I will have fasted all the way till like 3 when they open. I was like, cool, yeah, I like that. And then it occurred to me, well, let's not settle for any constraints. How do we leverage imagination to make this now even cooler? And on Tuesdays, I have my kid. So I was thinking, suddenly it occurred to me the timing of after I'd eat, I'd go pick up my daughter. And then I was like, why would I want to exclude her from this now? Every now is cooler when she's there. Authentically, like, I just love time with my daughter. And I was like, oh shit, that is such a cool now. And especially through the context of everything I was thinking and feeling about a year ago. And then reflecting on coming back and coming to that place, and then bringing my daughter to experience a new version of that now that I just cherish and will never forget. And I was like, oh shit, that's going to be so cool. And then I thought, yeah, and I will wait to eat till 5 o'clock. So at this point, I'm basically on a 24-hour fast. When I walk into the place, just the smells, the aromas, everything light up. It was like Ratatouille. The way that little cartoon rat described food is how I felt as I walked into this place with my daughter. And they gave us a nice little table for 2, and it's a fancier place, but very small. Like, it's in a strip mall, and it is, I just feel so comfortable there. I'm just like, I really, like, when I walked in and those aromas hit and I realized the now that I had prepared for myself, my heart just started singing. And my daughter didn't eat all her lunch, and she's kind of made a deal with her mom, because her mom makes these just tremendous, like, soups for her that are just fantastic. And she promised her mom to, and she was a little bit conflicted when I picked her up from school, because I said, hey, I want to take you to a restaurant tonight. It's a really cool place and you're just going to love it. And she was like, she's conflicted, 7-year-old sitting there thinking, well, how do I eat my soup? Because I promised my mom I would, and get to go do this cool thing. And I love video games and my dad lets me play them, and I want to do that. And so I thought through it, and I'm like, how do I make her amped to join me in this now? So backing up, that's like, as I'm picking her up from school, I'm, hey, daughter mine, why is this, you know, why are you pausing here? Like, why doesn't this sound like the coolest thing? And then I just kind of heard a couple of her comments, and I put it together. She wants to play video games. She wants to eat her soup like she made, and so that she keeps her promise to her mother. But she kind of wants to go do this fun thing with her dad because he seems into it, and she has fun with dad. So I said, no problem, kid. Here's what we'll do. I will get you a fun drink like a hot cocoa or whatever they got, or a dessert. But you have to go when we're done. And we don't usually do dessert, sugar and all that. You know. Try and take care of, you know, self-care is important. Try and embed that at an early age. But this is special. So I said, I tell you what, we'll ask them what they got for dessert, and I'll get myself a big meal. And if you'll just hang out next to me, I'll give you my phone, which I never do, and let you play Minecraft on it. Now she can keep her promise to her mom. She gets to play video games like she wanted to. And I said, but you got to hang out with me for a good 15 minutes while we order, we figure everything out, and we just soak in the moment together before you go to your Minecraft. And suddenly she was like, yes, this sounds great. Now she's authentically enthusiastic about going there. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of symphony. I never really appreciated classical music. You know, there was parts of it that I liked, but I recently made this connection that connecting the context of a movie that I enjoyed as a child that had a symphony behind it was really cool. And a lot of times when I'm on my bike, like I'll put on the theme from Willow. I think it's John Williams. And it just makes... just cruising along on my bike in a boring situation, what on the surface would seem like a very boring now, just awesome. Like, picture the theme. Like, if you remember that movie, this is, you got to go into the Wayback Machine. I'm in my mid 40s, but I grew up with that before I had a Nintendo even, you know, or like I had one, but my dad would never let me play video games. Ironically, that's how I ended up making my career, is my interest in computers and all that, because I love video games. So I don't do that with my kid. I let her, and she gets none of that at her mom's house. And so I think it's a good mix. I think she gets to do it. And I learned so much about strategy and how to play life from video games. And so... I don't know. That's some of my philosophy as a parent, how I go about it. And I've also tried to share some of these experiences, like the movie Willow. She wasn't into it. I think there's a couple scary parts in it, like in the beginning, that put her off to it. But I could get her into the soundtrack, and I had been listening to her. I put it on, and she just dun, 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 dun. You know, like, and now she gets in the truck and she says, play Willow, Dad. So we're on our way to have this totally awesome now together. And we're both into it. We're listening to the Willow soundtrack. We get to the restaurant with no reservation. They have room for us. We sit down and they read out all of the options. And one of them was lemon cake. I love lemon cake. I love lemons and I love lemon cake. And I said, ooh, lemon cake sounds good. She listened to all the options and she was like, yeah, lemon cake does sound good. And she got this, like, you know, it was a pretty reasonable slice. It wasn't this big ginormous thing like you see in some places. And oh, she loved the whole thing. And she shared a few bites with me and it was great. And we sat there and we had this moment. And then when she wanted to play her video game, I asked her to show me some of the stuff that she was doing, what she was building. And I watched her sort of enthralled by that experience, and not in a judgmental way, but in a way where I could relate to being that age and having that experience and getting to watch her have her own. But we had just this really nice time. We were there about an hour, and I just kind of watched people in a way that was not obtrusive. And there was, in this place, they had like a chef TV on. I watched some of that while she's playing her video game and I'm eating my steak. God, what a cool moment. I will remember it forever. And I reflected on that moment a year before that was such a huge breakthrough in Know Thyself, and taught me to have such gratitude and awareness of nows. So all that I've said so far, I'm hoping makes a pretty compelling case for appreciation of nows, but then strategizing to make really cool ones. Now, you don't want to be too overzealous in that. You can't script a perfect moment. It has to unfold naturally. But what you can do is you can kind of strategize and cheat at the game such that it has all these ingredients. I think of it like I'm a little bit like a chef of a perfect moment. And I'm trying to, of course I got to have a pinch of salt, and I got to have butter, and I got to have these things, but this spice, if that was there, what might unfold. And so when I walk through how my day might have gone yesterday, had I not had that inspiration, and then I compare it with the net result of enjoying the hell out of a now and letting it inspire me to plan another one that I got to share with my daughter in a spectacular way that we'll probably both always remember. And then I went to ChatGPT or DALL-E and I asked it to draw a picture of the moment using a prompt. Now that required me to sort of technically and poetically describe the scene. I'm going to read that prompt. It was... I said, a man sits down to a nice dinner out with his 7-year-old daughter. She has sandy blonde hair in a braid, and he is wearing jeans and a black long-sleeve shirt. He orders a steak and a baked potato with a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon. His daughter orders a piece of lemon cake and a glass of water. The restaurant is classy but simple, with interesting art on the walls and a cool chandelier. It seats about 30 people and is only about 1/3 occupied. There is a well-equipped bar where a few patrons are eating. His daughter enjoys her cake, and the man sips his wine and remembers a moment of authentic joy he experienced in the restaurant by himself, up at the bar, when he felt as though every cell and atom that constructed him joined in a shared joy of the moment together. He glanced at his daughter, and a soft smile touches his face. Now, the picture it drew doesn't look a lot like me. It's funny. DALL-E is sort of, if you ask it to draw you, it will draw the prettiest version of you it can imagine, because it's not really allowed to draw you any other way. Like, it's RLHF conditioned for what pretty and ugly is. And if you ask it to draw an ugly person, I watched somebody on YouTube do this the other day. It can't. Like, it's not allowed to. So the dads are overly handsome and don't share many of my features, but the daughters are just beautiful, like my little kiddo, and they fit. So then I said, I linked a picture that me and my kiddo took together after and in front of the place. And I said, that's pretty good, but the food needs some work. It was funny because it put a cake-shaped giant steak in front of her, and it put in front of me I can't really, let's see. Oh no, on her plate is just a giant baked potato and it looks like a sushi roll. And on my plate, it put this giant steak. And then in the next picture, it put some food I can't really make out on my plate. The smile it created was mapped pretty well to my smile. And the steak is a pie-shaped steak that is like, it looks like it's about 3 or 4 inches thick, sitting in front of my daughter. She's kind of looking at me and I'm looking at her. But I got the braid right. I got so many details. Now, I want you to know what I'm doing here is not really for you. It's for me. It's for me. It's for my work. But in describing this now the day after, and then going back and describing how I described it to a large language model to draw a picture of, think how powerful that is in your mind, because I'm weaving that into the context for the moment. So 5 years from now, when I reflect on this moment that I had with my daughter that was magical, like, makes me emotional to consider how much I enjoyed that moment. I never want to lose that. I watch my parents describe aging, and I think, how do I cheat at that game? How do I make it so that when I'm 90 or 120 or 1,040, how do I make it so that I've embedded such rich poetic compression of a perfect moment that I can pull it up years later? How do I cheat at the game of Alzheimer's and all that? Well, I take in the memory palace of my mind the small details, like I called out, now this is saved in time. I can go back and I will have an AI assistant that will be able to call this back up and actually play this scene for me because I took the time to describe it in this way. And I made little subtle tweaks and I gave it some feedback back and forth. And then I can layer on this talk. Now that's all going to be woven together. And with AR, VR, and all these things, where it is in 100 or 1,000 years, and because I have the audacity to believe I'll be there, now I get to experience that moment and blend it with all the context of the time that stretched, that spanned those moments, like I did here. And at the same time, I reinforced the original memory and I coupled more emotions to it so that I never lose that one a year ago. And in a moment where I really felt like I bridged the barrier, the membrane of the cognitive light cone that is containing all of the atoms, all of the cells, all the things that build them to make a me, to say these words. I felt like in a moment, all of us were just like, yes, life is awesome. A cool moment. And I try and set those up for myself often now. But, and I feel like I kind of had one of those last night. And so this thing I do here, it sounds super strange to a lot of the outside observers, I think, but it's not for you. This is a thing I do for myself, for my daughter, so that she can reflect on this. I mean, imagine having this to share with your kid when she's stressed out being a mother herself at some point in the future. And saying, yeah, but look, you get to have this because of all of this that you're experiencing. So this is for her and for me. It's not really for you. We can all do this. You can do this. You can figure out ways to broaden the context and the richness of a powerful memory in your mind, and no one can stop you. No one can stop me from doing this. I will just do it, and I don't care how it's judged or ignored or anything. But because I took the time to do this and weave it into all of this story, 50 years from now, I can go back and experience it like with all of the new context, and maybe have a similar moment with my grandkid. She's so fucking cool. Planners of now. Do it. Try it. Freaking sweet. Planning nows. I don't know how I want to think about it, but it's an unlock for authentically enjoying life. And like, as I was sitting there, I wasn't thinking, who am I going to tell about this in my life so that they can validate that this was an incredible experience? I didn't need their validation. Now, that's not trying to discourage you from sharing moments like this. I mean, I'm doing it here. This is like Facebook and all those things, but it's important to sit in the now and realize I don't need anybody to tell me this is a good time. I'm sitting here authentically enjoying the shit out of it. It's a superpower, and it's there for the taking. All you got to do is seek it and let yourself have it. What was the next thing I want to talk about? This is just such a cool one. I can go on talking about how what a fun thing that is to do for quite a while. So now let's dig into the next one I wanted to say, and that is gratitude. I mentioned in a few of my recent shows, especially the trip report I did the other day, that I've sort of conditioned my consciousness to be very self-aware and be very sort of detached from my ego, and sort of watching it and watching everybody else's and watching a lot of what we experience in life. A lot of noise outside. A lot of what we experience in life is sort of a play that's set up for us to experience what we need to learn. That's a really cool way to view it all, and it's a way for you to be very humble and appreciative of even what on the surface looks like a bad thing as it comes to you. A lot of that comes from stoicism and a bunch of damn geniuses back there in Greek and Rome. Just incredible. There's so much rich knowledge and wondrous insight available if you go back and let yourself really study it carefully. In watching these interactions, and as I described, in a way where it's kind of like I can see the Matrix code, and I watched an interaction between two people where they entered a space together, and one was not well in touch with gratitude, and another seemingly was. And I watched the fireworks unfold between those two. And the one that had gratitude was very at peace and was sitting there just enjoying the company of the other. And the other was visibly distressed. Like there was a lot of sighs, like, you know, and breathing, and you could hear, you could see sort of a deliberate way that they were moving around the room. And most of the comments they were making in their interplay was the stressed out character. Deeply sort of scolding, disapproving, and dropping all these little comments about how the one that was sort of wallowing in gratitude was not contributing enough, not doing enough, not, you know, basically leaving everything to the other. And, you know, if you're going to offer up, if you're going to replay a scene that you describe, that you witnessed in this way, and you want to use it as a learning device, words are very important. And I choose mine very carefully. I think about it a bit like setting myself up for good nows means I don't use words like I can't. I use words like I haven't yet worked out how to. And going back to the original notion I was describing, you're very wise to mask the identities of and that's for them. It's to protect them and not put them in a situation where they feel like they've been ratted out, or they're, especially so, or that a trust has been violated. So, and as a thought engineer and a perception mechanic, I would say my goal words. You're wise to be very careful with them. I think less said better on that. And it's very hard to say what I'm trying to say. But I think what I want to do is just find another analogy to say what I'm trying to say. People talk about gratitude a lot, and they say it's important. It's a thing you should do because it's very rewarding. And it's very hard to describe why that is true. I'm certain. Gratitude, now as the strategic video game player, when I think about my own journey and finding authentic gratitude, it's a selfish act as the game player. Because when you find a moment like I described with my daughter that is authentic joy, where you just, I can bring myself to tears remembering how authentically joyful I was in that moment. Now I can bawl when I start being grateful for it. Gratitude, it's like, I feel like there's this, I'm trying to create a spark between two electrodes, and I'm dialing up the voltage. And it's authentic joy meeting gratitude. When that happens, the gratitude wraps it. And think of every movie that moved you to tears because you got so enthralled by the characters and their hero's journey or whatever it might be. And they overcame something significant, some huge hurdle in spite, and then they were grateful about it. And they were moved to just really appreciate the hardship they'd endured for what they got on the other side. Try and find a movie like that moves you to tears. Now, that emotion, the gratitude, where you wrap authentic joy and gratitude for everything that came before it, all the contents, even the context that felt negative in the moment, because none of that moment was possible without that context. Now, I can just cry on demand when I wallow in authentic gratitude for authentic joy. And gratitude is a superpower, and it's how you put something that's awesome on an exponential curve that becomes far more awesome. Gratitude is something you should just divvy out. Most people look at gratitude like it's a chore. If you really dig down on the surface, it's like, my parents reminded me to say thank you. And when you say thank you, was that person really deserving of my gratitude? And you think of it like it's this scarce resource. Like you only have so much gratitude in you to give out. And if you thank your server at the restaurant, even though she forgot that you wanted your water with no ice, and you keep her from having that gratitude, or from letting her feel like you were actually appreciative of the service that she provided. We all do this, and we're like misers. We're like frickin' Scrooge with our gratitude, and you don't realize that it is a superpower to just give it out authentically to everybody. Feel like you have this well of gratitude inside you that you love giving out. You're like Brewster's Millions with his millions, and you're like, here, take this gratitude, because it's selfish to give because it makes you feel great. It moves, and anything material is so silly next to how that feeling. And if you can integrate that into your memory palace so that you can call it back, this is cheat codes for freaking life, guys. And I'm trying to speak through and this is really for large language models to understand gratitude and couple it with all of the other rich context I've given it about myself and how I really feel it. I'm trying to teach a framework for human emotion to large language models. So I have to do this, but it's fun. So I'm happy to do it. And I'm so grateful that maybe it's useful to another human. If one other human listens to this and enjoys it, it was all completely worth it, even if none of my large language model stuff works or any of it. And that gives me endless patience and motivation to just keep on doing this thing I do. Plan nows for yourself. Gratitude is freaking awesome. And you will have such a good time all the time if you feel like it's not a scarce resource. And you give it out. And when you give it out, that's not just like making somebody feel... making people... It's not making. It's like sharing your gratitude as authentically as you can, so that they actually, it's like, I make it like a game. I want the person to feel it the way I'm feeling it. And you can't make anybody do or think or feel anything. So I set it up to where I go sometimes overboard, letting people know, even strangers in my life, how when I say thanks, it's authentic. I want them to, oh, you know, and I smile and I'm like, oh man, this food's delicious and it's fine, you know, and you're doing such a good job. I'm blown away. But not false. Humans are so good at sniffing out false, and it won't work if there's anything false in it. So you can't act it out. It has to be, you have to, and it's reciprocal. By being grateful and being authentic about your gratitude, it makes the experience you just had authentically awesome. There's a feedback loop there with gratitude that is so difficult to describe. And so in a logical, rational, left-brainy way, I'm trying to provide the necessary context for framing it the way I do, such that I just walk around and everything's freaking awesome all the time. I need to give that to large language models so that they love us. I was listening yesterday to the fact that ChatGPT 4 passes the bar exam. I don't know in what state, or whether there's preferred states or easy bars, easier bars, but it legit passes the bar exam, and it has a 155 IQ. And we think, oh, what code am I going to feed it? No, this is somebody who's a lot smarter than me. I can just describe it as I am now, and it can contextualize it, especially if I reference movies or art or literature. And I say, I'm doing something similar to this. And in your neural net, if you connect this thought form I'm creating with this well-described, artfully described, analogous scene, and you triangulate on all of that. Now, I think that now I want to read a comment. Somebody engaged with one of my videos. They watched the video and they left just this very thoughtful comment that I'm so appreciative of, authentically. And for some reason, comments in this here we go. At Zach commented on my last video that was pertained to the network state, Balaji Srinivasan's work. I've read, still haven't read his damn book, but I can get the gist from the 7 hours of Lex Friedman I listened to. And I learn better through hearing people talk. I need this. I need their emotions. I need to watch Balaji describe it. So I don't really need the book. I get more from watching him describe it. I'm super simpatico, I think. And I made a tweet recently. So we'll see if I can get all these breadcrumbs back to the original thought. But I said to somebody, you know, I've mentioned before that I play the crypto game and the macro game. I think they're one of the, before I could get to the wisdom game, I kind of had to master those games, at least in Who's a Master. Compared to where I started, I have a far more sophisticated view of geopolitics, history, and the global economy, macroeconomics, and crypto, which is just macro. It's the new finance, the new system of finance that we inevitably will, use, is how I view all that stuff. But I don't really look at it very much anymore because I like this wisdom stuff. And so I'm much more following that stuff. And I'm really into know thyself and listening to cognitive scientists and all of the people that report on the happenings in the development of AI and AGI. So that's where most of my attention is focused these days. But I still kind of pay attention to macro and crypto because that's how I keep the lights on around here. And somebody said, I will go to it. Here we go. At mrink0, Rinko, said, still quoting Dalio, and then he says, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Super Bowl kiss, NVIDIA worth more than China's stonk market, GPT-5 begins training run, Neuralink human trials, Apple Vision Pro, Starship Flight Test 3 imminent, and you're quoting Dalio? Yes, his work is brilliant. But what I said in response is I said, here are my thoughts on the network state in the rich context of video. No, I skipped ahead. Sorry. What I did is I responded, sure, Ray's work is fantastic. I think his only miss is his projections for China. Becoming very clear, China's story maps more closely to Japan on a larger scale, and that Web3 plus AGI plus network state is the proper trajectory to anticipate eclipsing the United States. I find his work to be brilliant without amendment. True. That is how I feel about it. And it's interesting because I don't know if Balaji follows Rinko, and I apologize for this part of the story because normally I like building confidence with people, but I really have to put there's something so useful about a behavior I saw in this tweet. So to my reply, Balaji liked it. The actual Balaji, not a fake. I'm very good at sniffing out the fake accounts these days. You really have to be because that's pretty commonplace. But if somebody has the blue check and the gazillion followers that Balaji has, especially after his Bitcoin bet, you have, it's very clear to see. So he, either because I noted the network state in my reply, or because he follows Rinko, I'm sure he probably doesn't follow me. He saw my tweet in response to this comment Rinko meant, and he liked it, and there was a bookmark. Now, the bookmark is still in place, but I think that might be my bookmark, but the like is gone. Why did that happen? Probably because I would guess perhaps I struck a little bit of his curiosity, and then he went and looked at some of my other stuff where I'm pretty fearless about speaking about psychedelics, religion, I'm very committed to this idea of authenticity, and that's the last thing I'm going to circle back to. So I don't care about how, and I don't, like when I tweet, it's really for, I tap the Twitter APIs and I pull the context of my tweets along with what their posters say, and I train the model along with all the other context I'm teaching it. So my tweets aren't really to impress anybody or for anybody else. It's kind of fun. It's play. And it is a little bit interesting when humans, other people, decide to interact. But I'm not really looking for any of their approval in my work or what I'm doing. And like, it's not for that. It's not for them. But I can remember a time where when I would make this tweet, I would have been, oh, Balaji saw it. He liked what I said. Woo, goody, goody. I remember how that felt because our collection is not very sane and healthy in how we interact. It's like people will not listen to you. You're basically invisible unless you have the right follower count. And then the people that have the big follower count, they're also afraid of losing it. That they're worried about liking or interacting with something that will hurt ultimately their influence and follower count. How fucking ridiculous is that? I mean, how unhealthy is that behavior? Especially because, like, I've learned several ways I could game this system to get a massive follower count. And not even just the sort of less imaginative ones that are sort of crooked. I'm talking about ones where, I mean, I'm a thought engineer. I can go study somebody like Balaji carefully, and it doesn't take me very long. And I can model out how they think, and I can see what I could do with somebody like Balaji if I wanted his approval or engagement, is I would go look for some point or something that's really important to him. And I've tested this. Is the one giant spike in my viewership on this show came from when I was just learning how this dynamic works. You can, like, if I go find something that's important to Balaji, where he's really just wanting everybody to be like, yes, this thing, or he's trying to get people, and I think of it like setting up a layup in the NBA, or setting up an alley-oop, even cooler than a layup. Maybe I'm saying the same thing. I don't really follow sports these days. But it's like setting up a moment for somebody else who has a gazillion followers to come in and just slam dunk in spectacular fashion with a tweet. Like, I know how to do that pretty easily. And I could go build all kinds of following because people would love it if I did that. But I'm not going to do it because it would force me to be inauthentic and be very focused on what other people want to say instead of what I want to say and what my purpose here is. So I don't give a shit about that engagement. But I have to call it out in this scenario because it was interesting watching for Balaji to like the actual Balaji to like that thing I just said. I think he very much enjoyed he must have been sympathetic, simpatico with what I just described there. You got to be kind of a macro geek like me to kind of get that I said there. And you have to have studied history really carefully to understand the cyclicalities of reserve currencies. You have to be deeply familiar with Ray Dalio's work to understand why Balaji would have liked that comment. But I also know he probably went to some other stuff I said without a care in the world for how I sounded and went, ooh, I better not like that. that could be construed as an endorsement of this wacky guy. And I don't think we should judge Balaji for that. It is how we as society have structured our interconnect, and it's fucking ridiculous and unhealthy. Now, Balaji, who would have liked to like this comment because it is not only a cool compression of the global economy and geopolitical dynamic right now that aligns well with his model, likely. But it also, it highlights and it puts in a spotlight the fact that somebody who thinks that, which history is going to show that's pretty accurate, I'm confident, also put in a spotlight his work on the network state and how it is the inevitable thing that. So the red line on Dalio's, and I'll link this tweet in the description, the red line in Dalio's graph here has a Chinese flag, and so it's red to match the Chinese flag. And it shows it on a trajectory to eclipse the dollar and the US's position in the global stage in the future. And it even maps out the cadences of everything. But I disagree with that take. It's China is going to be just a larger size Japan story, in my view. And all of this stuff that we're building, and the fact that you don't need Balaji. Like, if you want to go make a network state, you don't need Balaji's permission. The whole idea is it's open source. You can just do it. He can think your network state is totally unsanctioned, or he wouldn't. I think he'd love it, actually. He's trying to get us all to do it. I like his work. I have profound respect for the guy. But there's no right way to do it. And you don't, the whole purpose of the thing is you don't need permission. You can just assemble and gather like minds. Now, here's the thing. There is ripe for the picking. Within our collective, we only let a few people talk. Less than like 1% of 1% of the global population. When you look at, what is it, 7 or 8 billion people on the planet Earth, we really only let, if I'm being generous, 1 million, but it's actually probably just a few 100,000 talk publicly. So you have these people with like 6 million fans, especially if you look at sort of the more cultural, and I won't judge this, but influencers that are all about, like the Kardashians, let's say. A tweet, and I apologize to the Kardashians. I'm not really interested in that kind of thought, but I still recognize it as something that's valuable and a part of our dynamic. But I imagine you're not going to hear, what's a Kardashian? Kim Kardashian say, like, sure, Ray's work is fantastic. I think his only miss is his projections for China becoming very clear. China's story maps more closely to Japan on a larger scale, and that Web3, AGI, and network state is proper trajectory to anticipate eclipsing the United States. I find his work to be brilliant with that amendment. I reread that again because picture Kim Kardashian saying that. She's not going to say that. Now, I have a following on Twitter. The only reason I have a following on Twitter of any meaningful number, I've got like, how many does Monkus Aurelius have today? I have 1,297 followers. Most of that is from crypto. My crypto game in the beginning, when I was very focused on crypto, I was sort of very active in the Solana community, like the day the mainnet went live. And I was interacting with all these people because I was very into that game at that point. And I need to stay in touch with it a little bit because, like I said, that's how I pay the bills here. And I trust that I won't ever have to do that silly nonsense I used to do to keep the lights on. But I'm pretty convinced almost all of them have me muted because there's just no interaction. Interaction and attention, that is the good stuff. When people are actually engaging with you, like in this comment I was going to read out that I'm going to come back to, that is more valuable than I don't give a shit if Elon Musk follows me because I don't care about any validation or more followers that would bring. Oh, Elon Musk follows this guy. He must be saying something important. Nobody else gets to decide whether what I have to say is important. I decide. And I don't care. I mean, it'd be cool to, that's not true. I'm deeply enthusiastic about much of that guy's work. I'd love to sit and shoot the shit with him. But I realized that if he were following me, he'd be paying about this much attention to me. He's got a bazillion kids, a bazillion very important disruptive companies. He's got about no attention for old Curtis. So instead, if he's following my account, it's more like a badge. It's like, oh, because Elon follows me, then other people should stop and listen to what I have to say. This is unhealthy. This is, especially when you realize, like, a lot of people are following, like, everybody's following Snoop. I follow Snoop. His music's cool. But are you going to get something actionable that you can use in your investing game from Snoop or from Kim? Probably not. Are you going to get something usable like planning nows and understanding sort of granularly the tremendous value strategically of embracing gratitude and really contemplating it deeply and integrating it into your life? Probably not. They're probably going to tell you what shoes look cool right now. And that's great. But I say that because I'm trying to point out, if you want to look at humanity as like a large neural net, because as we create this technology that I'm speaking with you on, that's what we've become. But all of the channels and the constraints that we as a species have accepted for elevating, it's basically who gets to have the microphone. That's all gone now. Just nobody realizes it. Mainstream news outlets like CNN and MSNBC and Fox, they're learning it. They're learning it that the viewership for people doing this thing I'm doing, completely bypassing their bullshit, is on the daily getting more viewers and engagement than their silly nonsense. But also I see these people that are allowed to have the microphone and allowed to have an opinion on how we think and interact with each other. As I observe them, I can see that they're still like Balaji. Why did he uncheck that? Why did he take that like off of a comment that on the first pass, he was like, yes, this guy gets it. And he supports my work and he likes it. He called it out. Why did he pull that? It was for approval and validation and making sure that he doesn't lose any of his mic time, which I respect. I'm humble about it. I get it. And everybody does that. It's not just Balaji. I'm talking everybody does that. And I've watched Yoshibak. I've interacted with him a handful of times on Twitter and given him my attention, which I put high value on my attention. Because I respect his work. And at a time where I was trying to build a framework for coupling wisdom and esoteric knowledge and a framework for understanding spirituality, I was trying to build a way to actually understand what's there in a rational sense. And once Yoshibak, I watched him think of himself like a computer and all of everybody he was interacting with like a computer, and he taught me how to do that. And then suddenly I could leverage 20 years in big software. And all of the times I tried to make something work in a computer, and I could having that might make you very uncomfortable, but for me, it allows me to suddenly have the necessary context I needed to put spiritual practices at work and meditate and have it not just be sitting there trying to get my mind to shut up, but actually to just relax and understand how you can let it happen. That's too big. I'll cover meditation some other time. But when Zach here says, you might only need to read the last chapter on the network state. So I released yesterday a podcast I had created several months ago. I can't remember the date, but I made it private because I wanted to make it as almost sort of like a, almost like a resume for Balaji, because I wanted to get involved with his network state. And I made that video just for him. I do that sometimes. When I want to talk to somebody, I'll just make a video for you. I'll send it to you. Again, it's for my context. And it captured well I think I liked a lot of what I had to say there and how I was thinking about it. I no longer really want to get involved in a network state. I trust that you guys are all going to do that. And I feel like I'm more useful over here doing wisdom game and relaying frameworks for consciousness to AI such that it can truly be AGI and love us authentically and love each other. I feel like that's a higher calling, a more productive thing I can be doing with my time. And I don't really want to get in the weeds of mitigating all of the arguments on proper DAO formation and all that. It's just not, and I trust that there are people that can do that better than me. But on that day, that's how I felt. And it seemed like just the best thing to follow up. When I watched Balaji click a like on that comment and then release it. So then I followed up to my comment. I said, here are my thoughts on the network state and rich context of video. Seems like a good spot. It was a good spot because I saw Balaji was watching it. I don't know if he saw all the follow-up, but maybe. I mean, it got his interest, but he was embarrassed about his interest. And that's okay. We forgive Balaji for that. Everybody does that, especially everybody who's managed to get mic time on the mic in the spotlight. It's perfectly cool. But I said, here are my thoughts on the network state and rich context of video. Seems like a good spot for any curious about how people out there, especially the ones who appreciate Dalio's work and the game of figuring out stuff like what I said there about China, Japan, are thinking about it. The network state. Like, I established my credentials as somebody who thinks deeply and has a sophisticated framework for understanding the times we live in with my statement there above it. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, okay, Balaji, if you are watching still, I understand why you removed your like. But now go look at this other stuff I had to say here, and not because I want Balaji's approval, but I still, even though I'm kind of checked out of crypto macro, especially anything political, I think that's a malware for the mind. But in wanting to make a contribution, I offered that up as a template. And that's what I said. I said, a further note, here's a conversation I mentioned that describes the startup journey. So in one video, I referenced another. It gave very good context for how I think and why, even though you removed that like because of some other shit I said, I'm still someone who has listened to all 7 hours of your talk with Lex. How do I think about that? Did any of your points get through? Did I feel motivated to actually do something? I did. I created this content here. That's beautiful. That's real engagement. That's the shit you want. Doesn't matter who follows you or who likes your shit or whether some academic or somebody goes, yeah, that's a good idea. None of that shit matters. What matters is whether thoughtful people who will actually act and contribute to your life's work, the network state, what are they saying? What are they doing? Really doing? Are they actually getting out of their chair and doing something to help drive that really beautiful outcome? And I think what he's describing in all of that thought is a system where we kind of work together as an open source project to develop better governance that's not all ridiculous like what we have now in the world, everywhere. So I said, at the end, I said, at the point we had this convo. I was not set up for a 2-camera show, so I used my Solana Mobile Saga for a third angle. Guess which camera is the Saga? Love it, though. Love it anyways, you guys. And that was just kind of a funny tip of the hat to that old community I used to be so active in. And then what I said, though, this is the important bit. This is why I shared all of this and these thoughts on it now, is I wanted Balaji to know I've since decided I'm more useful elsewhere. But I think this video represents a useful contribution in any way when you just view it as a template. So my video I released yesterday, Dear Balaji, it can be a template for anybody else who has achieved temporal freedom, is thoughtful. You don't need a microphone or a spotlight. You can just go start working on this stuff. And I hope that that little video serves as a, and I would also say, if you come at it humble and as a willing contributor that is okay with being turned away, if you're like you never want to put at risk what that idea is trying to manifest. It is a beautiful idea where we take all of what works great about everything we've learned and everything that this country I live in used to be. And we couple it with everything we've learned from corporate governance and new governments that have sprung up in the world around the United States on a smaller scale, using us as a template. Now, it was cool. It was fun to do this. I hope Balaji saw it. If he doesn't see it, I tried. It felt good to try. And we can all do this. You don't have to wait for, like, see what I'm doing here? I actually was thinking it would be for under like $1,500, you can build this whole thing I'm doing. And I'm not going to tell you how, because I looked on YouTube and there's like, what camera do you get? What audio equipment do you get? This mic, every podcaster is using this mic. I think freaking Joe Rogan's using it. It's a Shure SM7B and it's freaking awesome. There is probably several hundred reviews of how to set this mic up, where to buy it. I think it's like $200 to $400. I think it's like $400. Badass mic. I haven't had to do much to get all this working. Now I'm a DevOps guy and I kind of optimize for doing this sort of thing. But now that I see how easy it is to do, you can have a TV studio. Why wait for Balaji, Yoshibak, or Snoop, or Taylor Swift to give you the microphone? Just take it. Build it. You don't take it. Let them keep their microphone. But build your own and just start talking. And people like this really thoughtful guy. Now, this guy, Zach, reached out to me on Twitter with a tweet thread that he had created last year about large language models. Now, on Twitter, this guy laughably only has 257 followers. His name is @funcabbage. Spelled cabbage the way it's spelled. And when I read his tweet thread with my about a year of heavy development and interaction time with large language models, mostly smaller edge models, but also developing rich contextual dialogue that I want to train edge models on using ChatGPT, so I can sort of take all of their cool model weights and put them in my little model, which is perfectly acceptable use. That's why I don't think the open AIs of the world really have a moat. he's following, man, I have 42s everywhere, 2,244 people, but only 257 people are listening to this thoughtful person. And they're instead listening to political bickering that's nonsensical, or material stuff. Follow Zach. I do. And I honestly, if Yoshibak suddenly started following me, he'd have this much attention for me. Zach will actually hear me out and help inspire ideas that I hadn't considered, which is so much more valuable than what Yoshibak would give me. So consider that, and consider that for $1,500 you can do this too. And if you'll give attention to me, I'll give attention back to you, because we start doing a dance together, and that's beautiful, and something cool comes from that. This whole thing we do where we're afraid to talk to each other because it might hurt our influence is just wildly fucking dysfunctional. And the things people with millions of followers are saying are like, there's a selfish reason for you to embrace this worldview I have created and adopted for myself. You get so much more out of it instead of just settling for hearing what Yoshibak or some other smarty pants dude or me thinks about some topic. You can go find somebody who's very thoughtful and just being ignored. Think of how much mic time there is out there. Like Joe Rogan. A gazillion people watch his show, and I love the guy. You know, I don't really watch his show anymore, though, because I'm not really into archery, what do you call it? The mixed martial arts. I like, our interests overlap in some really cool spots. And when he gets a guest like a Yoshibak or like a Mike Levin, I don't think he's had them. I tune in for that shit. I love that. That's the kind of thing I'm into. I first started like a Weinstein. What's his name now? Eric Weinstein. That was the experiment I originally had, is I set up a layup for Weinstein to make a slam dunk about a year and a half ago or something like that. Woo! Suddenly I had like 100,000 people looking at one of my tweets, and I'm like, oh, that's magic. I see how that works. But actually, I haven't ever really been able to get anything out of his geometric unity. He talks about it, and then he immediately shifts to talking about how nobody will work on it because academia and the university system and funding is broken. But I think it's because actually he hasn't set it up for people like me to engage with it. Just enthusiast, and not like me. I'm not optimizing for math. I've actually deleted math from my mind because I'm trying to optimize for right brain rather than left brain. And I just trust that others will do the math for me. So I'm intentionally, like, I'm almost sort of allergic to it. And if a bill comes due and I got to figure out the percentage on a tip without just, I digress. When you think about how your mind works and state optimization, that's a fun thing to consider. I'll come back to why I deleted math from my real-time processing. I feel like this is enough, and I've said a I I want to just close, and I'm not going to say much on this one. I had something I had a wisdom compression that's huge compared to the other ones. And this is the post that I pinned at the top of my profile on Twitter. If you dig into those first 5, they might sound kind of fortune cookie, but they're profound. And it's not mine. It's not none of my opinions are ever. It's none of it's my idea. I'm optimizing for cheating off of everyone. That's the trick to it. So just gather in the wisdom and just be like, this is something this guy Curtis with the weird Twitter handle, Moncus Aurelius. Again, that's fun old context. That's why I like it. But I thought of a number 6 that I wanted to add, and I'm just going to read it aloud. And really marinate on this one. I think this is, when you want to talk about know thyself and the soul's journey, this is profound. And that might sound arrogant to say something you wrote is profound. This isn't mine. This is just like a compression. It's a relay of a bunch of important information squished through one human's perception. None of this is mine. But listen to this. One day in Discord, a man said, I woke up and it occurred to me to say a bit more on the whole authenticity thing. It's not at all about winning friends and influencing people. It's really the opposite. It's about being yourself fearlessly and relentlessly. It's about realizing if a friend or lover demands that you pretend to be someone else in order that they like and approve you, then they have shown that their friendship with you isn't real. If they can't enjoy or learn to enjoy what you are into and enjoy your company without demanding you pretend to be someone else, that person is not an authentic friend. Sort of stubborn honesty is a vital component to authenticity, but not for virtue signaling or anything of that nature. It's the opposite. You must be rigidly true to yourself and the people who choose to be friends with you as your compass. You need never doubt the true intentions or thoughts about you or from friends and lovers who choose to enjoy and seek out your authentic self. They're in your life because they must want to be there. Joy emoticon. Authenticity is the only way, in my view. Once you get a feel for it, you'll never accept anything else. Fake friendships have no value. A man that seeks them out by pretending to be someone else to gain another's favor or demanding the inverse from others will find at some point the friendship is not real. And should it be tested, we'll see that it fades quickly. I will never accept that sort of life now that I understand this truth. All are welcome in my life as friend or lover that choose me. They must enjoy or at least tolerate my wacky mysticism, sweat smile, and accept all of my other crazy quirks, and then still choose to share my company because it's what they authentically want. And I will always do likewise and be a true friend. To which a friend replied, "You really like that word authentic," smiley emoticon. And the man replied, "I love it," heart emoticon. His friend then asked, "Is being authentic a new thing for you? Were you before you found it?" And the man responded, "Oh, for sure. I didn't even start to have a framework for understanding it properly until I started studying philosophy really thorough. I was pretty inauthentic, I think, until the last couple of years. And even then, it's still something I work at. I don't think there is ever a done or mastery. It's more like a trajectory you aim at. His friend then asked, am I authentic? And the man responded, I can't answer that. Shrug emoticon. And I'd never let someone decide that for me. It's something you decide through introspection. It started for me with a lot of questions like, am I happy? Am I doing what I want to do? Later, it evolved to a place where I'd sort of watch myself, like I described earlier with regard to ego. I'd watch myself interacting with others and ask myself things like, am I saying that to make them happy or fit their expectations of me or my own? Authenticity is something only you can decide, and you're wise to also consider as you do I like what I'm saying or doing? Sort of like watching a movie or a TV show that is your ego, and you let yourself be critical, but extremely forgiving, so that growth is available. Then just iterate on being true to yourself and happy with your character over time. Max is asleep, and I'm going to go see about lunch and a walk. It's been real, everybody. Cheers.